Happy Thursday. Welcome back to another episode of To the Moms. We're your hosts, Kathy and Amaris. And today's a very special episode. Amaris is on here and she's going to be sharing her son's experience and journey with autism. This is going to be a part 1 of this series. So I'm really excited to hear your story, especially your journey as a mom of a child with special needs. I think a lot of our listeners should listen into this. So how do you feel about finally putting your story out there?
I feel good. I feel like I was trying to do that with my personal Instagram account, but I didn't really get any feedback. All I've gotten,
Really?
Yeah, like the only thing I really gotten was you're doing amazing, you're doing good, but nothing like, well, how like when did you suspect it, or can you tell me more? Can you tell me what I look out for? It was really like I'm talking to a wall. Like no one's really reciprocating.
Gotcha.
And the more I did it, the less people would say something, or it was just the constant people saying things. They were like my family members.
Gotcha.
Which is fine. I guess I wasn't reaching enough people.
I get you. It just wasn't the right platform.
Right. So anytime anyone is like, oh my gosh, I think my son or my daughter has autism and is autistic, like any moms that deal with this, and I'm always like writing a journal, like letting them know, like, please contact me, DM me if you have any more questions. I would love to talk to you about this.
Well, sorry. I was going to say, I'm so glad that you're going to be bringing awareness to us listeners and educate a lot of us as well. So,
yeah. And before I start, the reason why I'm like so excited to talk about it is because when we first started our journey of just the suspicion, you see all these negative feedback and all these fears on it. So I was very hesitant I did grieve once I got the diagnosis, but I just want to let parents know it's okay. You're going to get through this. You're going to get the support that you need for your child. Things will be okay. In later episodes, I'll dedicate like my fears with my son having autism, but yeah, we're going to do baby steps. Like Kathy said, we're going to start a series. So let's start in October 2020 when Thane was 15 months. Now, keep in mind, the year 2020 was COVID.
Right, yeah.
So October 2020, I completely quit my job. When I first resigned, they had me part-time remotely working from home. And I wasn't really paying attention to Thane because I was still in like work mode, you know? I was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm in work mode. I was giving him the basic needs. He wouldn't play with me, and I just thought, whatever, like maybe he just doesn't like me because
maybe that's
I'm
just
also
his personality.
pregnant and I can't pick him up. So maybe it's just that. It wasn't until I finally ended work and I realized
you spent more time with him.
And I spent more time with him. I spent all day with him. And I'm like, oh shit, like he doesn't say mama. He doesn't say dada. He doesn't say much. He doesn't really make any sounds. And I'm like, that's kind of odd because I've been around younger kids.
Right.
And by like 12, 13, 14 months, they were making sounds, saying mama, dada, or just approximating words. Approximation is like when you're trying to say ba, it's like ba, and you mean ba. He wasn't even doing that. Wow. So I'm like, okay.
Did you think maybe at the time, like maybe this is because of the pandemic?
No, I didn't. I didn't think socialization was such a big thing, although it kind of is.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because I personally know families that have dealt with, delays with their kids.
Right.
That have had them, during COVID.
Right, which is a thing. There's a lot of kids who they have a delay because they were stuck at home.
Right.
But for Thane, he had his father and he had your aunt and your cousin to play and talk to him. And we never baby talked him. It was always, oh, do you want the ball? Oh, mac and cheese. You know, so it wasn't like we weren't talking to him because we were.
Mm-hmm.
He would also like tiptoe walk, or
I
tiptoe
remember that.
run.
Yeah.
And I would think that's peculiar. Like, why are we doing that? But the number one thing that made me think he's autistic, he will curl his hands. And he will if he's excited, he'll like curl, he'll flap his hands. And I remember just thinking, like, I saw a TikTok and this mom was saying early signs of autism. And I remember her saying tip talk walk, hand flapping, and I was like, oh shit, like he's autistic.
I was gonna say, did you have knowledge prior to
I didn't.
this? Okay, on
I
what
had
autism was, because I feel like a lot of people
no.
don't.
No, I had no idea. I just knew. I remember there was this kid in college,
Mm-hmm.
and he was so sweet, and everyone thought that he was weird because he would just run up to people and give hugs.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't care because I'm like, I was raised to treat everyone with respect. He wasn't inappropriately touching me. It was just a run
Yeah.
up, hug, hello, and I would hug him back. I'll say hello. And I remember he will curl his hands too. So when I saw Thane curling his hands and like hand flapping, I'm like, oh my God, he is
Wow.
autistic. But I didn't know like anything about it. So I started doing my research, and I did come across that it was too early to get a diagnosis. Usually people won't. Luckily for me, at 15 months, you do have a wellness checkup with your PCP. So
Right.
I brought it up to her and I said,
Okay.
listen, I think he's autistic based off of X, Y, and Z. And she's like, okay, I see your concern, but because he was born premature, you need to let him catch up by 2 years old.
Mm.
If by 2 he's not making any progress, then yes, we can follow up with the next steps, but you have to give him time. In my
Okay.
mind, I was like, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, no. Like,
Right.
in my heart, I'm like,
You
you can't tell me
knew.
shit. I knew
At the time,
he.
did you keep this to yourself, like your suspicions, or did you tell
So,
family members and
so I
friends?
told Abraham, and he, you know, was like, okay, I could see it, but you know how Abe is. He's
Yeah.
very factual. I need facts. For him, at his job, he had multiple channels that he was a part of, and he was a
Mm-hmm.
part of a parenting channel. So he went into that channel and asked the question, like, when did your child start talking? And there were other parents that said, my child didn't say anything until 2 years old, and I couldn't get him to like shut up. So, with that, and Abraham was also doing research. There is research that says by 2 years old they are blossoming with speech
Mm-hmm.
and language. So he tells me that to comfort me, and I'm like,
Oh.
I don't know. I'm having that mom gut, that mom
Yeah.
instinct that tells me otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my mom about it, and my mom was like, I didn't want to say anything, but I did see some traits because my mom used to be a preschool aide, and she was not a one-to-one aide, but in her classroom, she did have an autistic child, and the
Okay.
mother only trusted my mom with him.
Oh,
So
wow.
my mom was like, I have experience with this kid. I think she was with this child for maybe 3 years. Like she was able to
Oh,
to
wow.
grow with him. So my mom was like, I did not want to say anything because I didn't know how you feel. But yes, I would agree with you. I believe it too. So I'm like, okay. I talked to your aunt about it, and she was like, no, I don't think so. But like she doesn't know. I don't think there's
And a lot
anyone
of,
in.
yeah. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of us felt that way too.
Yeah. I talked to my best friend Jackie because she, deals with autistic kids, and
Mm-hmm.
she can't tell me too much because
Yeah.
of the field that she's in. She was very cautious, and
Mm-hmm.
she gave me tips like, why don't you talk to him this way and do this? And I'm like, I am
Mm-hmm.
narrating his life. I am talking to him like as a human being and not a baby. I am doing everything that she's giving me, and then she says, keep advocating for him. Once he reaches 2, just like push.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. So months go by, and Cirilla is born. And by then, I wanted to talk to his ped, like, hey, it's been a couple of months. Like, we're now in April of 2021, and he's not saying much. But the hospital didn't schedule me with her. She scheduled me with someone else. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just wait 2 months later when he turns 2 years old to talk to her about this.
Okay.
So his wellness appointment was in the beginning of July of 2021. And I'm like, yo, doc, no changes. What are the next steps? So she's like, all right, you're going to contact early intervention. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay. For the audience, early intervention is a state program from birth to 3 years old, and you do not need a doctor referral or any type of referral whatsoever. Like, you as a parent can call, explain to them the developmental delays or problems that you're having at home, and they will schedule a free evaluation to get your child evaluated. So that's what I did. So we went through the whole evaluation. I think I had to wait through either 2 weeks or a month for the results. I forget. But at the end of the call, she tells me, we are early intervention. We do not diagnose. Okay. But I'm going to give you a bunch of developmental pediatricians that I'm aware of for you to contact. Because if you want a diagnosis, that's just the route you have to go to.
Right.
I'm like, okay, no problem. So I called everyone on my list, and I was able to get on the wait list and the cancellation list of 2 places. Everywhere else, they were either not taking new clients, or
I remember you were going through that wait list period.
Yeah.
That must have been really frustrating.
It was frustrating because October 2020, I knew in my heart, he was delayed. And I had to wait until he was 2 years old. So that's what, 6 months, 15 to 24 months. I don't know.
I can't
do the math. That's a lot. But, I was upset because I'm like, damn, early intervention is from birth to 3. So why couldn't I do it before? But then I remembered during COVID, there was a wait list for early intervention too.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't matter. I could have called them, but they probably wouldn't gotten to me until
everything was pushed back regardless.
Yeah, everything and everyone was so behind. So I'm like, all right, whatever it is, what it is. So I'm on wait list, and we finally get his results for early intervention, and he is below 0. So there's this Z score. Okay. So I'm going to try my best to explain it, but it's this Z score, kind of this whole U diagram. 0, I think, is in the middle. Towards the right is positive, where it are his strengths, and towards the left is his weaknesses. Okay. Everything was below 0. Oh, so wow. He had negative 2.1, 3.5, this and that. If I remember correctly, there's 5 or 6 different categories. So gross and fine motor imitation, adaptability, socialize, and I can't remember the rest, but it was below 0. So they said that we're eligible, and as soon as they find a therapist to come to our home, he will be able to start.
So luckily, at that point, he got the diagnosis, or
at that point, no.
Okay.
Yeah, that goes.
It was just a score of
Yeah, it was just a score from early intervention, letting us know that yes, our assessment does show that your son is delayed.
Okay,
but they can't. I think they knew. I think they can tell, who has a disability and who does not.
Right. It's just not their job.
They can't tell you. They can't tell you that. So I am grateful that the evaluator gave me, list of people to call, because, she saved me so much time. So at that point, all that is happening in July, by the way.
And you're freshly postpartum, so.
Yep. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah. So dealing with all of that. Dealing with postpartum was a lot. I think at the time, in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna get him help. I'm gonna get the support that he needs. I'm gonna do it. Nothing's going to stop me.
Mhm.
So by now we're in August 2021. And like I said, I have his developmental pediatrician appointments on a waiting list.
Mhm.
I get a call that there was a cancellation, and if I can take the appointment in September, in the first week of September. I'm like, absolutely yes.
Mhm.
So August, we finally get one therapist to come in from early intervention, and it was DI, and DI stands for developmental interventionist. They're
Okay.
pretty much like a teacher. So she like teaches them to like sit down, follow one step directions, and kind of like increase from there.
Mhm.
So now we're in September 2021. We finally have the appointment with a developmental pediatrician. It was telehealth, so I didn't have to like
Mhm.
leave the house. It was in,
Oh, good.
yeah. So I was able to do it home, which was great. So
I
he's
love
asking us.
telehealth.
Me too. It is the best.
Yeah.
It is the best. Like, that is one less thing I have to do. Like, I don't
Mhm.
have to get anyone dressed.
Yep.
Just like look presentable.
Yeah.
Awesome. So he was asking us a bunch of like questions of what our concerns was. He was like observing things through the camera. And then at the end he goes, well, based on this small generic assessment I have done, I believe that Thane is autistic. And what I want to do is confirm by doing ADOS testing. I need to look up what ADOS testing is, but it's one of the ways to test for autism. It's
Okay.
performed. I know it could be performed by like developmental pediatricians, psychiatrists, neurologists. For Thane, it was performed by a psychologist.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, great. So towards the end of it, I looked at Abraham and I was like, I fucking knew it. I was like, I
Yeah.
fucking knew
Yeah,
it.
of
I'm
course.
gonna trust my mom gut, like moving forward, because that's the only thing I can count on right now. And then I start to cry because I felt like people didn't want to believe me, or they were
Or
in
take you
denial.
seriously, maybe.
Right. Yeah. So I was a little hurt.
How did Abraham feel?
So with Abraham, at that point, I think he started to realize, okay, yes, there is something going on. I think his fear was, we do all this testing, all these appointments, and they come back with, we don't know what's going on.
Right.
And that was his fear, because that has happened to him a lot. Like,
Oh,
he has
really?
gone through, yeah. I don't know if you remembered, but he, with all his memory issues that he has, one summer he dedicated to go through all these appointments with a neurologist, and I believe either an EKG or EEG, I forget, to see like what was wrong with his memory. And it came back that they don't really know what's wrong with his memory. They just know that it's not dementia or anything serious. So afterwards, I text pretty much my mom and Jackie, like, yo, this is what the doctor said. We're going to do ADOS testing. And okay, cool. So where am I? Also happening in September of 2021, occupational therapy through early intervention started as well. So I was very excited about that, because I have a cousin who's an occupational therapist, and she's always talking about how great it is for kids and how kids love it and all, and they loved it. I was very happy.
Aww.
I'm very happy that I was getting
good.
that. After the doctor's appointment, he does email us a script for speech, a script for occupational therapy,
Okay.
a script for a hearing test, scripts for an EEG, the ADOS testing, And I believe that's it. So I have to call
Wow. That's a
five.
lot.
That's a lot. I did it all in September. I Everyone was still taking naps that time, and during nap times, I was calling places, getting on wait lists through speech and everything. Luckily for me, the speech and occupational therapist practice that's down my street, they were open. So I was able to get an evaluation by the ending of September, beginning of October. So I was super happy with that. I'm like, yes, we're getting everything done. October, November, December of 2021, he's finally in outpatient speech, outpatient occupational therapy. His hearing test is done, came back normal. His EEG was done, came back normal. ADOS testing was scheduled after his 3rd birthday. And I was so upset because I'm like, I'm trying to get him to school. Now with I'm like, he needs to be in school. With early intervention, they're able to work with the school district, send all the data and information that they have gathered so that the child study team can evaluate the child so that they can begin school and take over the services that the child was getting. So I was very upset that he wasn't going to get ADOS testing until his 3rd birthday. January 2022 comes, and it's the 2nd week of January. I get a call from the ADOS testing place, and they said, hey, we had a cancellation. Can you come tomorrow, January 11th? And I said, absolutely yes. So I did not have to wait for his 3rd birthday. I was so excited. That's awesome. You have no idea the amount of parents that wait like months. I'm talking months to get an appointment, not only to get an appointment, but then the time comes, they have to reschedule because something happened.
Yeah.
Or
there's so many steps.
There's so many steps. And the fact that I was able to start this journey at 2 years old.
That's amazing.
And by 2.5, he was getting seen. I almost felt like the universe was on my side.
Yeah.
So we go in the very next day, and it's like about 2.5 hours of testing. They ask you a series of questions, they evaluate and they observe him, how he's like doing everything. And I could tell, I'm like, I already know he's delayed based from early intervention. Now I'm just hoping you see what I see and what EI sees. So towards the end of it, towards the end of January, we met with the child study team, and I tell them I'm waiting on my Thane's ADOS testing results. The moment I get it, I will forward it to you. And they're like, okay, it's fine. In the meantime, by then we were scheduling all of their evaluations for the school. So I'm like, okay, good. This is good. Like everything is coming along. I'm so happy. February, March, April, May of 2022. I'm just putting everything in a bunch because so much, not so much has happened, but like just little things happen like each month. So within those 4 months, we get his diagnosis, and the psychologist diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder, and she recommends, to do the speech, the OT, and the ABA therapy. I'm like, okay, cool. Like we're already in speech, we're already in OT. We're just not in ABA therapy yet because you need a confirmed autism diagnosis in order to start ABA.
Okay.
So I sent all that information to the child study team. I didn't have to send it to EI because EI was going to end in June once he turned 3. So I was like, I'm not going to give them any of that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
it's only from 0 to 3 years old, you said.
Yeah, right? And they do it like the day or the week before you turn 3. So for Thane, he turned 3 on a Monday, and Mondays were his last days of EI. So, so it was whatever. In those 4 months, the DI therapy sessions end and I finally get speech through EI. Now, you would think, well, why didn't he get speech before in EI if he's already in outpatient speech? Well, I was told by his speech therapist what early intervention likes to do is give you someone who has a background in speech and have them do DI therapies. But you need to contact your case manager and request for a speech therapist because he's already in outpatient speech. He needs to get speech in the home. I verbatim literally said that to my case manager. And I think the DI therapist or practitioner, whatever they're called, I think she was a little butthurt because she wasn't certified in speech. So she couldn't really do speech strategies, I guess. So she was like, I'm just gonna let you know if he is going to get speech through EI, I'm going to step down. I think that's just too much therapy for him.
Oh man.
And in my mind, I was like, what the fuck? Like that's not your child. That's my child.
She really stepped down?
She really stepped down and she said it in the meeting like, I already talked to mom and
I would feel so hurt as a parent. Like,
honestly,
like, how did you feel? No?
When she said that, I was like, and I didn't tell her this, but you were butthurt. You're salty, you're petty, and if you actually cared for things' well-being, you would have stayed. But you leaving tells me that you know all your strategies and techniques weren't working. So for someone who has a speech background, but you're not certified in like speech language pathology, you're butthurt. So I was like, that's fine if you want to leave.
Maybe it was a blessing, honestly, that she stepped down.
Yeah. Abraham was like, I don't think none of the stuff that she was doing was working. And I had to agree. You got him to sit down. You gave him breaks, but like, nothing was really happening. And I do know things take time and it's a process and all, but whatever.
Yeah.
So speech started and speech is remote. Now, that was hard because
getting him to
I'm the teacher.
Right.
So the speech therapist is telling me how to do things. Man. And I was like, this is going to be hard. It wasn't hard.
No?
I loved it. It was not hard.
Wow.
I love that moment with him. I love being taught to make things better. So
I'm glad to hear that.
I was so happy. So my case manager was like, hey, I don't have anyone to come to the home because that was backed up. Speech was the one thing everybody was having a hard time getting. So I agree with her. I was like, let's start speech remotely because I do need to work on speech with him. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, she found someone that can come to the home. And I was like, you can cancel that. I am keeping this lady remotely because she was professional.
And it was
she
working.
was so gentle. It was working. Like by the first session, she got him to say boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
But like 4 or 5 or 6 months of like DI with a person who has a speech background.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, a little bit was happening, but like it took time. So I was like, I made the best decision. And that's the number one thing I think I taught myself was advocate for your child. Don't
100%.
feel bad if you're hurting people's feelings because you're, switching up on them. Like, don't
fuck
feel
everyone
bad.
else. This is your child.
Yeah,
this is your child's life.
Yeah. So I didn't feel bad whatsoever. So I was so happy that I did that. And I think because I had to learn for speech, I did that with Cirilla. So Cirilla now speaks well. Like I've been told that she is advanced for her age. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's because I was the teacher for speech and I actually liked it and enjoyed it. Let me tell you something. All of his therapists, they love me because they know I would go home and do whatever it is that they were doing in the home.
Yeah, well, you were dedicated. You were dedicated.
I was dedicated.
And
I was like,
you were a stay-at-home or a stay-at-home mom, and I think that's very beneficial too.
Yeah,
that's what he needed.
Yeah, so when people are like, when are you going back to work? Are you looking for jobs? Yeah, it's like,
Oh
go
my
fuck
gosh.
yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
go
I'm
fuck
focused on
yourself,
my son's life.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I need to make sure that my son is gonna learn how to say, please don't touch me. No, I don't like, or I want this and I want that.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm living life right now because my son
Aw.
is making progress and I'm so happy. In the same month in May, we get the results from child's study team and they're like, these are the services that we're going to offer your son because he turns 3 literally like a week after school ends. They're like, we can't offer him school right now, but he can start in September. He'll have a bus pick him up in your house. And the one thing that they were able to do for me was continue speech in the summer. So they have I think they call it extended school year, so ESY, and with that he was doing speech twice a week for a month. So I was happy with that.
Yeah.
I was very pleased with that. So he was getting to know the school, getting to know the speech therapist there, and he was doing great. They were like, I can't believe like how great he's doing. So I'm so pleased with that.
Aw.
So pleased with that. So June, July, August, he's now 3. All of EI services end. He's beginning the speech sessions at school.
Right.
It ends, and that's when school starts. So that's all I have so far because I figured I will stop until he's 3, and then I'll talk more about like the school year because a lot has happened from when he started school to when he ended school. So that's like a whole other episode.
Awesome.
But yeah, so that's the beginning of it all.
That's amazing. We're so proud of Thane. Oh my gosh.
I'm so proud of him.
I feel like every time I see him, he's like a different kid every time I see him.
Yes. Yes, he is. He's saying a lot more. Like this past weekend, I had left. I think I left to do grocery shopping, and he gets sad when I leave. So when he sees the car pull up, he gets very excited. But this past weekend, Abraham told me, he said, "Mommy's home. Open the door. Mommy's home." And like he said that full thing. He's like, yeah, like literally, that's what he said. And I was like, oh, like it almost makes me want to cry because that's the work both Abraham and I are putting in to make sure that he's able to communicate. 100%. Like that's what we want, is for him to communicate. And you know what? I think the DI therapist didn't like me because I kept saying I want him to start talking. Like I want him to communicate. And I don't think she liked the fact that I was doing PECS. So PECS is a picture exchange communication system. Not a lot of people like PECS, but let me tell you something. When we started PECS, he was able to start saying, I want food. I want fruit. So I was like, all right.
If it's working for him, it's working for him.
Yeah, if it works, it freaking works. Yeah. I'm just modeling without expectation, which is one thing they like teach you in speech, is model without expectation. Don't expect, just model.
Right.
So I think she didn't like me because of that, but I don't give a fuck because whatever.
No, I think you and Abraham are doing like such an amazing job, and you guys are so committed. And man, like what a lucky kid.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of children don't have that. They don't have these dedicated parents. They don't have, and parents don't have like resources. And, we're lucky that we live in a state, New Jersey does offer really good resources for children with special needs. Like I do have to say that. So yeah, like it's amazing. He's getting the help that he needs, and it's awesome.
Yeah. No, Abraham and I, we talk about that all the time, that we're happy that he's our kid. Because if he was someone else's kid, we don't believe he will get the support that he needs. And you do, I mean, I have friends and family members who work with kids with special needs, and they can't tell me much, but they tell me things like, I have parents who they want the hand flapping, they want the stimming to stop, and I'm like, but that makes them happy, that makes them,
that's
regulate.
What makes them too. It's comforting for them. So why would you want to take that away from them?
Right. So I'm I'm very happy. He's my kid. I'm very happy
Aw.
that I have the opportunity to stay home and
Yeah.
work with him, work with Cirilla to make sure that everything is good. Like, I'm very, very happy. And there are days, don't get me wrong,
Oh, yeah.
I have tough ass
You do.
days
You do.
where I'm like, I can't get this child to calm down, and I'm doing everything in the book that I was taught, and
It's a
it's
lot
not
mentally.
working. But
Yeah.
sometimes he just has to go through a whole hour of like
Yeah.
screaming and
And that's
crying just to
okay.
get, and that's fine. I'm just on the floor with you, rocking
Yeah.
back and forth, doing deep pressures, massaging your hand. Like,
Aw.
I'm doing it all for you to calm down. And you could tell when he calms down, he goes, wipes his face,
Aw.
and then starts like running. And I'm like,
So cute
okay,
though. Like I did
all
not.
right,
Yeah. We made it through.
we got this.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Not me. Like I'm like tearing up here. I don't know.
Oh,
Like really emotional.
I didn't think this was gonna be an emotional episode.
No, it's just you're such an amazing mom.
Thanks, girl.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening in. We can't wait to continue on with this series. I hope you enjoyed this one, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.